He stood in my doorway and didn't move. "You can't come in," my own son said, while strangers laughed inside my house. I'm Eudora Vale, 72, still weak from weeks in the hospital, and I'm standing on my porch with my keys in my hand, staring at a lock that no longer fits. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. He told me I signed it all over to him while I was drugged, barely awake. He says I gave him everything, my home, my name on it. Gone. I held up my keys anyway. "This is my house." That's when a voice from inside snapped, "Tell her about the papers," and my son's face, just for a second, changed. I leaned closer and said one thing. "Then let's check the name." Calder didn't answer me right away. Up close, I could see the details he probably thought I wouldn't notice. His shoulders too stiff, his hand gripping the edge of the door like he needed something solid to hold on to. He wasn't confused. He wasn't even angry. He was bracing. Behind him, the house sounded wrong. Drawers opening, someone dragging something heavy across the floor, a woman's voice, sharp, unfamiliar, calling out from deeper inside, "Where do you want this?" followed by laughter that didn't belong in my home. I shifted slightly, trying to look past him, but he stepped wider, blocking my view completely. "Mum," he said, lowering his voice like he was calming a situation that didn't exist. "You need to stop. This was already handled." "Handled," I repeated, my fingers tightening around the keys. "While I was on oxygen." His jaw tightened. "You signed the transfer." "Oh, I have the documents." There it was again, calm, practiced, like he'd said it enough times to believe it. A flicker of memory pushed through. The hospital room, too bright, the smell of antiseptic. Calder standing beside my bed with a clipboard, his voice soft, patient. "Just routine things, Mom. Insurance, temporary authorization." My hand moving because he guided it, because I trusted him. I looked at him now, really looked. "You changed the locks," I said. "It's my property," he replied immediately. "Not not temporary. Mine." Inside, Mirelle appeared briefly in the hallway behind him. Her eyes met mine, and there was no surprise there, no apology, just calculation, and something else. Urgency. She leaned toward Calder and whispered, but not quietly enough. "I ask her if she remembers signing the last page." Calder shot her a look, sharp and quick, like she'd said something she shouldn't have. That was the moment something settled inside me, not panic, not fear, certainty. I eased myself down onto the porch bench, slow and deliberate, ignoring the way my lungs protested. The wood was cold through my clothes, but I didn't move. "What are you doing?" Calder asked, his voice tightening. "Resting," I said simply. "You can't stay here." I just did. A car passed slowly on the street, then another. Curtains shifted across from us. The world was starting to notice. Calder glanced over his shoulder, then back at me, lowering his voice again. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I met his eyes. "You already did that." For a second, neither of us moved. Then, from inside the house, Mirelle's voice came again, sharper this time, no longer bothering to hide it. "Calder, where's the folder?" His expression changed, not confusion, not irritation, something tighter. He turned halfway toward the house, just enough for me to see past him. Boxes stacked where my table used to be, and my desk pushed against the wall, with the bottom drawer missing. I looked back at him and said quietly, "You might want to find it." And that's when he realized. Something wasn't where he thought it was. He thought I would leave. That's what his posture said when he came back out 10 minutes later, the door opening just enough for him to step through, then closing quickly behind him again, like I was something that might slip in if he wasn't careful. But I hadn't moved. Same bench, same keys in my lap, same house behind him that still felt like mine, no matter what he said. "You've made your point," Calder said, trying for patience and missing it. "Now go somewhere comfortable. I can help you arrange." "I'm already comfortable," he exhaled through his nose, irritation rising now that I wasn't reacting the way he expected. "Mom, listen, we talked about this. After the hospital, you weren't going to stay here alone anymore." "We talked," I said. "We didn't agree." His mouth opened, then closed again. That used to happen when he was younger, when he realized he didn't actually have the upper hand in a conversation. But this wasn't that boy anymore. This was a man who had already moved people into my house. Right on cue, the front curtain shifted again. A man I didn't recognize pulled it aside, just enough to look out. Older than Calder, heavier build, Morell's side most likely. He didn't even pretend to hide it, just stared at me like I was the one out of place. "Everything okay out there?" he called casually. Calder didn't turn around. "Yeah, it's handled." Handled. The word sat there between us. Across the street, Halvan stepped out onto his lawn, pretending to check his mailbox. He'd lived there longer than I had, long enough to know exactly what this house meant to me. His eyes moved from me to Calder, then back again. Calder noticed. His voice dropped. "You're drawing attention." "I'm sitting on my porch." "It's not your porch anymore." That again, firm, rehearsed, like if he said it enough times, the ground would shift to match it. I tilted my head slightly. "Then why are you the one standing outside?" That landed. He glanced back at the door, just for a second, like he was checking something behind him, or someone. Inside, the noise had changed. Less laughter now, more movement, drawers opening, closing, something being searched for. Morell's voice cut through again, sharper this time. "Calder, I can't find the rest of it." He stiffened. I watched that reaction carefully. "Find what?" I asked, my tone even. "Nothing," he snapped too quickly, then correcting himself. "Just paperwork. It's all inside." "All of it?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead he shifted tactics. "Look, if this is about feeling left out, we can talk about arrangements. You'll be taken care of." Taken care of, not respected, not consulted. Managed. "I took care of this house for 41 years, I said. I don't need arrangements for it." His patience cracked a little more. "And now you don't have to anymore, that's the point." Behind him, the door opened suddenly. Morell stepped out, her expression tight, controlled, but her eyes moved straight past Calder to me. "There's a problem," she said. Calder turned sharply. "What?" She hesitated just for a fraction of a second, then she said it. "The signed pages, they're not all there." Silence, not the quiet kind, the heavy kind that presses in. Calder looked back at me slowly, and for the first time since I arrived, he didn't look certain. Mourning didn't fix anything. If anything, it made it worse. I was still on the porch when the sun came up, same bench, same position. The cold had settled into my bones overnight, but I didn't move. I didn't knock. I didn't ask again. Or inside they knew I was still there. I could hear it in the way the house sounded. Quieter now, careful. No more laughter, just low voices, footsteps that stopped when they got too close to the door. At exactly 8:12 a.m. the door opened. Calder stepped out, already dressed, already tense. He stopped the second he saw me. "You're still here." I didn't answer. His eyes flicked to the street. Halvan was outside again, this time not pretending, just watching openly. "Mom," Calder said under his breath, "this is getting ridiculous." Before I could respond, a car pulled up behind him. Not police, not an ambulance, a courier. The man stepped out with a clipboard and a sealed envelope. He didn't look at me first. He looked straight at Calder. "Calder Vale?" Calder hesitated. "Ah, yes. You've been served." That word hung in the air like a crack. The envelope passed from one hand to another. Calder didn't open it right away. For a second he just held it, like the weight of it had already told him something he didn't want to hear. "Open it," Mirel's voice came from just inside the door. He did. His eyes moved quickly at first, then slower. Then he read it again. "What is it?" Mirel stepped out beside him now, no longer hiding. "What does it say?" He didn't answer immediately, so I did. "It means you should have listened." He looked up at me, anger flashing, but it wasn't solid anymore. It wavered. "It's a temporary injunction," he said, finally, his voice tight. "Property dispute. This is nothing, just a delay." The courier spoke calmly, like he'd said this 100 times before. "It prevents any transfer, sale, or occupancy changes until review." Mirel's head snapped toward him. "Occupancy changes we're already—" "That includes current occupants," the courier finished. Silence. Behind them, I could see movement again. Mirel's family, suddenly less comfortable. Someone whispered, "What does that mean?" Calder folded the paper too quickly. "It doesn't change anything." "It changes everything," I said. He turned on me. "You went behind my back. You went through mine first." That stopped him. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then he tried something new, something sharper. "She's confused," he said, louder now, directing it towards the courier, toward Halvan, toward anyone listening. "She just got out of the hospital. She doesn't remember what she signed." There it was. I felt it land, but I didn't react the way he wanted. Instead, I stood up slowly, every movement deliberate. "Then remind me," I said, "which document gave you my house?" He hesitated, just long enough. Mirel stepped closer to him, her voice low but urgent. "Just tell them, stick to it." He swallowed. "The transfer authorization, you signed it. I have it inside." "Good," I said. The word caught him off guard. "Bring it out tomorrow morning," I continued. "Every paper you think proves this house is yours." He frowned. "Why would I—" "Because if you're right," I said, cutting through him cleanly, "you'll have nothing to worry about." The courier glanced between us, then made a note on his clipboard. Halvan took a step closer to the edge of his lawn. Mirel's grip tightened on Calder's arm, and I held his eyes as I said one last thing. "Let's put it all on the table." By morning, the house didn't feel like his anymore. You could see it in the way Calder opened the door, slower this time, like he wasn't sure what he'd be walking into. The confidence from yesterday hadn't disappeared completely, but it had thinned. Inside, the air had changed. Boxes still sat where they'd been dropped, but nothing looked settled anymore. Mirel's family lingered in corners instead of spreading out. Conversations stopped when I stepped in, because this time I did. No one blocked the door. Calder had said yes to bringing everything out, and that meant letting me back inside. Table, I said, nodding toward the dining room. He didn't argue. Papers came first, stacked, shuffled, straightened too many times. And Calder laid them out like evidence he needed to convince himself of, not just anyone else. Mirelle stood close beside him, arms folded tight, watching every movement. Halvan stood near the doorway, silent but present, and then the legal representative arrived, mid-50s, composed, neutral. No reaction to tension, just observation. She set her case down, opened it, and gestured lightly. Let's begin. Calder was quick to take control. These are the signed transfer documents, he said, sliding the first set forward. Dated during her hospital stay. Witnessed. Authorized. The representative didn't respond. She just read, page by page, signature by signature. At first glance, it looked clean. My name, written the way I always wrote it. Dates aligned. Language formal and precise. Calder noticed it too. His shoulders lifted slightly, just enough to show he felt it. The return of control. You see, he said, glancing toward Halvan, everything is in order. I didn't speak, not yet. The representative turned another page, paused, then continued. Next, she said. Calder pushed forward another set, slightly thinner this time. These finalize the transfer, he added. Her eyes moved more slowly now, carefully. Mirelle shifted beside him. It's all there, she said, too quickly. The representative didn't look up. I stepped forward just enough to rest my hand on the table. One more, I said. Calder glanced at me. That's everything. No, I replied. It isn't. A beat. Then I said it clearly. The authorization letter. That word, authorization, landed differently. Calder's fingers twitched against the table. It's included, he said. But there was a delay now, a gap that hadn't been there before. Then show it, I said. Mirelle leaned in, whispering sharply. Just give it to her. He reached for a separate folder, one he hadn't placed on the table yet. That didn't go unnoticed. He pulled the document out, slower than before, and slid it forward. The representative picked it up, and this time she didn't move to the next page. Her eyes stayed on the signature line. A few seconds passed, then a few more. Calder shifted. Is there a problem? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached into her case and pulled out another document, one I recognized, my verified signature record. She placed them side by side. Silence filled the room. This signature, she said finally, tapping lightly on the authorization letter, does not match the verified record. Mirelle stepped forward instantly. She was medicated, her hand. That accounts for variation, the representative said calmly, not structural inconsistency. Calder's voice rose. That's ridiculous. She signed it in front of... Of whom? The representative asked, looking up for the first time. That stopped him. He opened his mouth, then hesitated. I turned slightly, looking toward Halvan. You were listed as witness once, I said. Halvan nodded slowly. I was never called. The room tightened. Mirelle's grip on Calder's arm loosened. The representative turned another page, scanning quickly now. There's also a missing witness verification on this document, she added. A required element for this type of transfer. Calder shook his head, stepping back. No. And that's... Everything was signed. I made sure. You rushed it, I said quietly. He looked at me then. Really looked. And whatever he saw there, certainty maybe, made something in his expression crack. The representative closed the folder, not gently, deliberately. "I'm going to be very clear," she said. No one moved, no one spoke. Her voice didn't rise, but it carried through the entire room. "This transaction shows multiple indicators of invalid execution and potential fraud." The words settled heavily. Fraud. Morel stepped back. Calder didn't. He just stood there, like the floor beneath him had shifted and he hadn't caught up yet, and for the first time since he told me I didn't belong here, he had nothing to say. No one argued after that. Not immediately. The word fraud didn't explode. It sank. Slowly, deep enough that everyone in the room felt it settle before reacting. Calder was the first to try. "This is a mistake," he said, but his voice had lost its structure. "There has to be some kind of error. You followed selectively," the representative replied, calm and precise. "You have partial documentation, inconsistent signatures, and missing witness validation on a transfer requiring full compliance." Morel spoke next, but softer now. "What does that mean?" "Exactly." The representative closed the folder fully. "It means the transfer is not legally valid, and it triggers a formal review process." Calder blinked. "Review?" "For attempted fraudulent conveyance," she said. "The documents will be submitted. If intent is confirmed, it may proceed beyond civil dispute." That was the moment it landed. Not just that the house wasn't his, but that this had consequences beyond losing it. Behind them, Morel's family began moving, quietly at first. A bag lifted, a chair pushed back into place. No one announced anything. They just started disengaging, one by one, as if distance might separate them from what was unfolding. Calder noticed. "Morel," he started, but she had already stepped away from him. "This wasn't what you said," she muttered, not looking at him. "You said it was handled." "I thought it was," he snapped, but there was no force behind it any more. I watched them, saying nothing. The unravelling didn't need help. The representative gathered the documents. "You'll both be contacted regarding next steps. I strongly advise you do not alter or remove anything further from this property." That word again. Property, and not his. She turned to me briefly. "Miss Vale, your prior filings will be referenced in the review." I nodded once, nothing more. Within minutes the room began to empty. Morel's family left first, avoiding eye contact, their earlier confidence gone completely. Morel followed slower, pausing only once near the doorway, before continuing out without another word. Calder stayed. Of course he did. He stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and papers that no longer meant what he thought they did. "Mom," he said finally. I looked at him, not the boy I raised, not even the man who stood at the door yesterday, just someone who made a calculation and got it wrong. "You thought I wouldn't notice," I said. He swallowed. "I was trying to help. You can't manage this place alone anymore, and I just—" "You didn't ask," I said. That ended it. There wasn't anything left for him to stand on. By the afternoon he was gone too. No shouting, no final argument. Just the quiet, uneven sound of someone packing faster than they planned to. And then silence. Real silence. Days later, the locks were changed again. This time, by me. I walked through each room slowly, not searching, not checking, remembering. Everything was where it belonged, or would be again. My desk stood properly against the wall, the missing drawer restored. Inside it, exactly where I'd left them months ago, were the original documents, the safeguards, the signatures done properly, witnessed properly, untouched. I closed the drawer gently. By evening I sat by the front window, the same one that had framed me outside just days before. Only now, I was inside. The street was quiet. Halvan gave a small nod as he passed. I nodded back. No anger lingered, no urgency, just certainty. It was always mine, I said softly to the empty room, and this time there was no one left to argue otherwise.